welcome to day one of Speak Anyway Live, or day 78 of consecutive Facebook Lives, if you'd like to look at it that way. I'm changing it to Speak Anyway Live because for the next however many days I do this in this vein, it's going to be about storytelling and coming up with the stories of my life. What I said yesterday was that I had found that I was not using as many stories for my life as I could because I kept only taking stories that I'd used in contest speeches and using them in my overall speeches because I wanted to save all my stories for future contest speeches. Contests in Toastmasters, for those of you who don't know, there's a contest for the World Championship of Public Speaking that I have competed for many, many times and come close to winning, but not quite won yet. Well, it's ridiculous. It's a foolish endeavor to ignore all those stories. So many other stories in my life that could be used to make a difference in the world, in my keynotes, when I speak to people, or even just make a difference to me if I remember them again. So that's what Speak Anyway is going to be. Every day, I'm going to tell you a different story and how hopefully it can relate to you, relate to life, and have some sort of a lesson. And I'm going to be recording these on paper or on the internet in some way so that I can go back and use them, essentially creating a live story log so that I can pull stories into future keynotes, into future speeches for the benefit of everybody I ever speak to. Now, today, the sandbox, playing in the sandbox. I mean, essentially, I am kind of playing in the sandbox, right? For all of you IT people that put together websites, you have that website that you're building, and it's just the sandbox where you just play, and it doesn't have to ever be official. My first sandbox that I can remember, my earliest memory, I was probably about 3 years old. And I either lived in Omaha or Downers Grove. I don't know which one. I know that I was living in an up-down duplex. I think we were living in the basement. And in that sandbox, I had a gold car. And it was fairly decent size. It was not like a Hot Wheel. It was like a model car that my dad had given me. I don't know. I don't really know how I got it. I think I only remember playing with it that one time. I may have broken it. Maybe it wasn't even my car. Maybe it was my dad's car, and I took it out to the sandbox because I got in trouble for playing with it in the sandbox. I really don't remember much more than that. So I probably won't ever use that story except in this sense. I called my mom today, 77 years old this year, and asked her if she remembered the gold car, if she remembered where we might be living. And she wasn't quite sure. She thought maybe it was probably Omaha because we lived in an up-down duplex there. But the key was not so much what she could remember as much as how talking about that story then led us to talking about a whole bunch of other stories, some that she didn't remember that I did, some that she remembered that I didn't, and I'll be sharing some of those in future episodes. The lesson here isn't that there's a lesson from my story. The lesson is that I went to my mom to try to get more information. Now, you may or may not have access to your parents or other family members, but there are people around you in your life that can probably help you dredge up some details about stories in your life. People you grew up with, people you went to school with, people you've worked with, obviously siblings if you have them, teachers. There are always people who might be able to add to the stories that you remember in one way, and they can add their perspective, or they can remind you of something new. So don't feel like you have to dig entirely on your own. You could make it an archaeologic dig with a whole bunch of people, one at a time, I suppose, and really find out the stories of your life. So I hope you found this particular episode a little bit educational, a little bit helpful. We're going to go more into full story mode tomorrow here on Speak Anyway Live.